A thin orange band crowned the horizon, neither sunrise nor sunset, a permanent bruise where day and night failed to agree. It was the hourless hour, and it had lasted 3 years. The clocks in every city still ticked, but no two agreed. Wristwatches contradicted church towers, which contradicted phones, which contradicted the official feeds broadcast by the Astronomer General's office. The drifting of minutes was deliberate, everyone said, though no one dared explain why too loudly. In the half-light, rumor traveled farther than sound, and the loudest rumor of all whispered a single name: the penumbrists. I first heard it at the port of Nisa, while cataloging confiscated cargo for the Ministry of Standards. A shipment of polished obsidian discs arrived with a forged license claiming they were exotic tableware. When I lifted one, the stone swallowed my reflection so completely, I felt my pulse falter. Someone had etched concentric rings on the back, the silent geometry of an eclipse. My superior laughed it off as contraband art. I signed the destruction order, but kept the smallest disc, slipping it into my coat, the way a pilgrim pockets a relic. It warmed against my ribs like a private sun, though Nisa's air had the chill of dusk at every hour. The next evening, if you could call any span of time evening anymore, I climbed the tower of the maritime clock to reset its obstinate mechanism. Legend said the tower governed every chronometer along the coast, yet ships still drifted into harbor, insisting it was dawn or noon or midnight, their navigation smashed against the simplest measure of when. I peered into the brass movement and found new parts where nothing ought to be. Tiny gears of the same obsidian alloy, black as the discs in customs. They arrested the pendulum just enough to steal seconds. The larceny so gentle no audit would notice until months had vanished. Someone had performed surgery on the heart of time. While I wrestled the gearbox free, footsteps climbed the spiral stairs. A woman in a deep-hooded scarf appeared, a silhouette drawn by candlelight. Her voice struck me with the clarity of glass. "That clock belongs to the shadow office now." I replied that the ministry's seal outranked any shadow. She smiled, only in daylight. She placed a coin on the rail. The metal bore the double curve of an eclipse, crescent kissing crescent. "We pay for what we take," she said. I did not see her leave. By the time the echo of her boots faded, the gearbox and the obsidian gears were gone, and so was the coin. In my palm lay nothing but the memory of weight. That night, I walked home through streets clogged with twilight markets. Vendors sold mirrored masks and crescent pastries, each stall lit by lamps, whose flames were filtered through smoky glass. A child asked whether tomorrow would ever come. Her mother answered, "Tomorrow is here, just hiding behind the moon." People laughed, as if it were a riddle with a prize. Yet behind every joke lay dread, crops growing stunted, circadian disorders filling hospitals, entire economies flailing without the metronome of sunrise. At my apartment, I locked the door and set the obsidian disc on the table. The rings on its back glimmered faintly, though no lamp shone on them. An idea surfaced: rings, gears, orbits. I laid the coin from my memory beside the disc, drawing its outline on paper to be sure it had truly existed. Then I opened the restricted archives. Decades earlier, the Astronomer General had proposed orbital mirrors to cool the equator. Vast dihedral plates, hinged and steerable, to shade reef belts during warming spikes. Funding died. Papers were shelved. The idea forgotten. Yet recent satellite feeds showed glints where no satellite should be, a configuration too regular for debris. I overlaid their paths on a lunar ephemeris. Every orbit converged on syzygy lines, the Earth-Moon-Sun alignments that make an eclipse. Someone had built the mirrors in secret, not to cool the planet, but to choreograph perpetual partiality, a twilight tuned by celestial engineering. I slept badly and dreamed of cities under a sky that never resolved. Before dawn, whatever that word means when dawn is an unkept promise, I stood before the ministry's internal review board and asked for authority to investigate the cult operating under the name Penumbrists. They scoffed. Cults, they said, romanticize ruin but rarely finance orbital construction. Only a sovereign power could launch that tonnage. My proposal was stamped, denied, misallocation of resources. I left the office lighter by one illusion, that daylight bureaucracy could combat midnight conspiracies. 2 nights later, the woman in the hood found me again, this time at the abandoned planetarium on the city's fringe. I was charting the misalignment between projected constellations and the real sky. She applauded. "You are chasing us," she said, with remarkable accuracy for a man denied a budget. I asked her name. She plucked the obsidian disc from my pocket. How had she known? And turned it over. "Names have phases," she said. "Tonight, I'm Umbra." She indicated the vaulting dome above us. "Look up. It is easier to show than to tell." The planetarium's projector, though unplugged, scrolled alive. Above, the mottled heavens spun faster than any lecture dared. Stars bled into silver arcs, pooling until they formed a single circle. Then a black coin slid across the false sun, recreating an eclipse in accelerated silence. At totality, the stars brightened while the sun's corona blazed a white crown around darkness. "We built that." Umbra's whisper was equal parts pride and prayer. "Except we used the real sky." She reached into her cloak and withdrew a miniature mirror, hexagonal, its surface alive with servo motors. "One of 7,000, she said, "each the size of a kite, arranged like scales on a serpent girthing the world. We tilt them to groom the light, trimming daylight's excess, blending night's rough edges. We are pharmacists of shadow." I asked why humanity should suffer vertigo from their prescription. Umbra's eyes glimmered in the gloom. "An eclipse is the only time the naked eye may look at the sun and survive. It is an apocalypse, negotiated into beauty. Our ancestors tracked those moments across generations, threaded pearls on the string of time. Then industry drowned the sky in smoke, and people forgot how to wait. We bring the pearl back, a necklace around the world." I countered. "You have stolen time itself. People cannot sow or harvest. Children cannot grow without hormones that obey light." She answered, with a softness that frightened me more than any rage. "Ritual requires sacrifice." I expected coercion or extortion, but she slid the miniature mirror into my hands, as though gifting a toy. "Keep it," she said, "a token for the witness." Then she left, footsteps hushed by century-old dust. In her absence, the projector wound down, ejecting its last image, the world swallowed by the moon. The next weeks blurred. Wherever a public clock ticked, I found evidence of tampering. Obsidian gears, resonance dampers, escapements redesigned to lose step with Greenwich. Even the official network time protocol drifted, packets rerouted through clandestine servers that reported shorter or longer seconds. The Penumbrists were rewriting not the sky alone, but the very concept of an hour. Science journals published apologias claiming circadian plasticity was better for mental health. Ad agencies pivoted to eternal golden hour campaigns. Stock markets extended twilight trading into permanent volatility that favored insiders. Civilization adjusted the way a broken leg learns to limp. Meanwhile, the mirror on my desk pulsed. When I angled it toward the window, its actuators clicked, aligning with some unseen command. At random intervals, its surface darkened, not by reflection, but by absorbing all light like a well without bottom. Each episode coincided with a fresh wave of time signal sabotage. The mirror, I realized, was both sensor and node, a conscience for the sky. On the last conventional night recorded in Nisa, I received an unsigned invitation etched on smoked glass. Hildegard Monastery, Hill of Bats, longitude and latitude included. Come witness the syzygy choir. I hired a motor trike and followed the coastal road, where the sea looked poured from lead. Parsimony of light forced the driver to navigate by shoreline acoustics. Even the gulls had migrated, mistaking the half-lit world for constant dusk. The monastery squatted atop basalt cliffs, its silhouette a tangle of spires that once tracked real sunsets. Torches burned green with chemical fire. Inside, cloisters had been converted into workshops. Novices in charcoal robes polished mirrors, calibrated gyros, soldered motors under frescoes newly vandalized with crescent graffiti. They greeted me as if expecting their prodigal archivist. Some wore medallions hammered from clock faces, hands bent into the shape of crescents to show allegiance to the hourless creed. Umbra led me through a nave whose stained glass no longer depicted saints, but overlapping orbs. Each window was a step in the dance of Eclipse. Partial, total, annular, hybrid, the lexicon of shadow. Choir stalls had become mission control. Consoles bristling with antennae broadcast commands to the mirror swarm. Above the altar floated a hologram of Earth, wrapped in a blossoming ring of darkness. The real-time feed showed continents marinated in twilight. We tilt the mirrors in 90 minutes, Umbra said. The final convergence. After tonight, you will not recall full noon or true midnight, only the hush between. I told her she was murdering the seasons. She rephrased, "We are midwifing a constant spring." She asked whether I had brought the pocket mirror. I presented it. She placed it into a rack among hundreds, each inclining toward a central transmitter, the syzygy choir. "Your node completes the array," she said. "You are now the choir's note E minor, the lament that holds the chord." Heresy mixed with honor churned my stomach. I said I would expose them. Umbra regarded me gently. "You already have. We planted evidence at every clock you repaired, every record you filed. The ministry considers you the architect of this daylessness. Should they regain the sun, they will burn you for the theft." I laughed, as panic prickled my spine. "You forged my guilt too?" "History prefers single authorship," she replied. "It simplifies worship." The choir lifted their voices, a drone of vowels tuned to resonant frequencies that vibrated the mirror nodes. The sound was not loud, but pervasive, like blood heard from inside the ear. I felt the orbiting mirrors respond, signals cascading, panels swiveling, a murmuration of metal in vacuum. The hologram above the altar darkened as the ring thickened. The world was about to experience a total, planet-wide, perpetual eclipse. In that moment, I understood the primal awe that births cults. The corona of the sun, our star's ragged halo, would blaze around a disk spanning every longitude. People could look up without blindness. They would see flames licking darkness and discover unfiltered wonder. Who would condemn the architects of such a sight? The penumbrists would not need armies. Gratitude would knight them. Their doctrine would spread faster than dawning comprehension of its cost. All this flooded me with terror and, shamefully, yearning. I had spent my life auditing truth, tallying errors in other people's experiments. Here was an experiment so vast, it painted the sky itself. To reject it required a scale of courage equal to the moon. I am no moon. I slipped away while their chant peaked. Down corridor stairs lit only by flicker, I located the monastery's original pendulum, an artifact retired to storage. Its bob, a bronze sphere heavy as contrition, hung above the flagstones. Monks once tracked the swing to prove Earth's rotation. I severed the cable, wrestled the bob free, and lugged it toward the choir. Each step a war against mass and conscience. The nave's doors opened on a sea of robed shoulders. Above them floated the hologram, now almost pure night. I climbed the pulpit, hooked the pendulum's cable over a buttress, and shoved the bronze sphere into the glassy rack of pocket mirrors. Metal screamed. The rack collapsed, spilling mirrors like black petals. The drone crumpled into gasps. Some mirrors shattered, others stuck at absurd angles. Alarms shrieked. Outside, something changed in the sky. A fissure of pale gold leaked through the artificial night. Umbra stared at me. Neither rage nor sorrow, only astonishment. The bronze sphere lay at her feet, ticking where smaller mirrors cracked beneath. She knelt, picked up a fragment, and bled where it sliced her palm. Crimson welled, but looked gray in the false light. "Why?" she asked, voice softer than dusk. "Because the world deserves its own mistakes," I said. "Not yours, not mine." She closed her fist over the shard. "You cannot unring an eclipse. The mirrors are still aloft. Time will drift back to our tide." I knew she was right. My sabotage was a tourniquet, not a cure. But I also knew pendulums. A break in resonance can shatter rhythm. The choir's coordination was fractured. The planet-sized eclipse would flicker, the illusion exposed as mechanism. People would remember noon and midnight. They would question the creed that tried to erase the very words. Umbra stood. Blood streaked her robe, the color of sunset we had not seen for years. "We will rebuild," she whispered. "Perhaps," I conceded. "But the next worshipper who gazes at the sky will wonder whose hand dims the light. Doubt is daylight's seed." Sirens approached, likely ministry patrols, summoned by the same override that had alerted me to the nave alarms. Umbra backed away into crowds already dispersing through secret corridors. She paused once more. "When the real eclipse comes, and it will, remember how small you are." Then she was gone, absorbed into a file of silhouettes. I stumbled outside. Above the cliffs, the sky teetered between night and day. Fissures of blue splitting a canopy of indigo. Rays speared down like searchlights, illuminating corners of the sea in unpredictable patches. Gulls returned, confused and shrieking. Their cries intermingled with the monastery's bells, which toll by inertia even when no one pulls the rope, because time, like guilt, retains momentum. Down the hill, the trike's dashboard clock flipped wildly, unable to stabilize. I left it and began walking. In my pocket, I found one undamaged miniature mirror, a stowaway from the shattered rack. Its surface showed a sliver of sun, a sliver of moon, chasing each other across infinite reflection. Somewhere above, thousands of mirrors still waited for new instruction. Governments would fight to seize them, corporations to monetize them, zealots to consecrate them. The sky had become an altar, and everyone now knew the path to its sanctuary. I wondered whether I had saved the world from perpetual twilight, or merely opened the pews to endless congregations of would-be gods. The first true sunrise in 3 years broke while I walked the basalt road. It wasn't magnificent, too rusty, too small, but it was honest. My eyes watered, scarcely believing color could be that severe. Somewhere, children were blinking at light older than their memory, learning the name of day. I thought of the obsidian disc I once pocketed, the false coin, the clock tower gears, the echo of Umbra's chant, all artifacts of an ambition so grand it mistook itself for mercy. I did not keep the mirror. At the cliff's edge, I angled it toward the rising sun, then let it slip from my fingers. It caught the light briefly, flaring a farewell, before tumbling to the rocks and sea, a fragment of shadow returning to that which casts none. Behind me, the monastery bells fell silent as the ministry's officers secured the grounds. Ahead, the horizon brightened, the bruise healing one photon at a time. The world was resetting its clocks, though never again, I suspected, to unanimous tick. Somewhere Umbra and her penumbrists plotted their next adjustment. Somewhere, others drafted charters to defend daylight with equal fanaticism. Yet in this fragile gap between conspiracies, the sun rose. That was enough. I walked, counting each step not as a second, but as the measure of an ordinary man trying to remain so, while the sky negotiated its covenant with shadow.